About a month ago, we had a Nintendo Direct partner showcase, giving us our second look at Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. And though we still haven't seen too much of the game yet, I'm really excited for it. So, you know what that means. It might be late, but it's been a long time coming. Rits, grab that magnifying glass. Because it's finally time we dive in and analyze everything we can from this latest trailer, before we inevitably learn more soon. If you like what you see or learn something new about the game, then make sure to leave a like, comment, and of course subscribe or even consider becoming a channel member, as the support all really helps out a bunch. So grab a snack, kick back, and let's see what we can find in this Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment analysis. It should go without warning that there will be spoilers for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom in this video, and honestly, this game in general. If you don't know the story to that game yet, now's your chance to tune out. Still with us? Alright, then first up, let's quickly talk about the playable characters. So far, we've seen Zelda, Rauru, Minoru, the Sage of Water Zora, the Sage of Fire Goron, the Sage of Wind Rito, the Sage of Lightning Gerudo, and Sonia. She's seen in a team up with Rauru, so we can assume she's very likely also going to be playable. There's very likely more than just these characters, one of which we see at the end of the trailer, but more on that one later. Age of Calamity had a lot of other playable characters that were never really shown off in any pre-release trailers, so I'm largely inclined to believe there will be at least a few more playable characters beyond these ones. But this is a decent start. So, for now, let's move into our frame-by-frame breakdown of the trailer. First up, the opening shot has the original Hyrule Castle, which was previously seen in the first trailer, but now we get to see it from above. And we know it's Hyrule Castle, as this section is where, spoiler warning, Sonia dies in a memory in Tears of the Kingdom. We can make out the Temple of the Time on the left, specifically the one from Tears of the Kingdom that was once on the Great Plateau, and later became part of the Great Sky Island. So that places this original Hyrule on the Great Plateau. We always figured this original castle was on the plateau, but again, this confirmation is good. We then have Sonia and Zelda walking along the castle grounds. I'm unsure if it directly leads into the next clip after this one, but it seems to be from a cutscene. While we can't see her face due to her hair covering it, Sonia seems to be talking here as they walk, as Zelda looks at her as if she's listening intently. Perhaps Sonia's describing life in the castle, or telling Zelda about where they're headed to. The next clip shows Zelda and Sonia standing behind Rauru, watching on. If the next scene and this one are connected, which they seem to be, this is when Rauru bestows the Sage's mask to the Goron Sage. It's the same mask that he wears, and we can just barely see him coming on screen before it cuts away. This seems to be in the throne room, as it looks pretty much as it did in Tears of the Kingdom in the memory when they met with Ganondorf. We can see the red carpeted stairs behind Rauru leading to the throne, as well as the tables and chairs in another section of the throne room. The next clip focuses on Rauru. He seems to be giving some sort of speech or prayer outside. There's some mossy cobblestones behind him, and we can make out Sonia to the left, going off of the long blonde hair. It could be tied to this next clip, which is also outside with Sonia on his side. And in this one, they seem to both be using their powers with their hands joined. Judging by Zelda's outfit here in the background, this is not long after she first arrives in the past. Rauru looks to be speaking here, so maybe they're using their powers to open or create something. We can see Rauru's secret stone attached to his bracelet seem to glow, but Sonia's around her neck doesn't. As the scene changes, we hear Sonia's voiceover.
Given an opening, he will bear his fangs.
It's easy to assume this is referring to the royals and their lack of trust in Ganondorf, knowing that he must be plotting something. Or it's possible this could be Sonia telling someone like Zelda how Rauru will fight to protect his kingdom if he must. But with the line, given an opening, it does read more like a warning for Hyrule not to let its guard down around Ganondorf. Plus, the scene changes to Hylians being attacked by a cloud of malice and gloom. The Hylians are all in identical outfits, being these light blue robes, masks, and wielding long spears. The spears themselves look to have some sort of golden blade at the tip. The Hylians look to be running for their lives from this entity, and we can see it tear through them as the camera follows it spinning around. While it looks like the same scene, we can make out a cut to the very next clip that now appears to be at a different time of day, though a similar area. Rauru now stands surrounded by Hylian soldiers, who all look the same as the previous clip. This one back here is wielding a one-handed sword instead of a spear, which looks to have that same gold material to it, and the shape is reminiscent of the Forest Dweller's sword. Rauru, on the other hand, is wielding the same weapon we've seen him use in the first trailer. It looks to be some evolution of the Zonai spear, with white added to the bottom and top of the hilt. But the energy blade at the end is a unique shining yellow, likely powered by Rauru's power of light. Instead of one large creature of malice or gloom attacking the crowd, we instead see a bunch of smaller, ghostly entities made of flames of gloom. We can make out a pair of thin limbs on them. Perhaps these are new monsters unique to this game, created purely of Ganon's malice. They're small, so I suspect they're common enemies akin to bokoblins, instead of anything much stronger. The very opening of this clip, disguised to look like a transition from the previous clip, is a close-up of one of these creatures surrounding Rauru. There's also what looks like an unconscious person laying back here early in the clip, so maybe it does take place immediately after the previous clip, and these soldiers and Rauru have come to the previous soldier's aid. The next clip shows the blood moon rising over Death Mountain, specifically near Goron City. There's not a lot to say about the clip itself, though it does make me think we'll have a significant portion of the game take place after Ganondorf's rise to power as the Demon King, since, at least how it's presented in Tears of the Kingdom, that seems to be the very first blood moon. Maybe we get a bunch of shots like this, showing the blood moon in a bunch of different areas. Goron City, Zora's Domain, Gerudo Desert, etc. The next clip focuses on Sonia, sitting in a field of Sundelions. Given the look on her face and the focus on the petals of the flowers flying off, it seems like the Sundelions might be wilting. Maybe this is treated as an omen. Given that Sundelions are used to honor Sonia's grave in Tears of the Kingdom, their significance and connection to her are probably much like the Silent Princess is to Zelda. We can see Hyrule Castle and the Temple of Time in the background. The camera follows the flower petals, pointed towards Death Mountain in the distance. The clouds over Death Mountain look a bit strange. Two thick rings of clouds, and thick smoke rising through them. Maybe there's some sort of problem happening at Death Mountain, which is how Hyrule connects with the Gorons. Looking back at the memory from Tears of the Kingdom, Death Mountain did look like this back then too. So maybe this was just how it looked in the time period.
Until Hyrule itself is no more.
This voiceover from Sonia seems to confirm that, yes, she's talking about the threat Ganondorf poses, and the visuals change to the dark red embers of malice or gloom in the dark, likely indicating Ganon's rise to power. We then see a bunch of monsters in quick succession. 2 red bokoblins and a red boss bokoblin, which we can tell the colors based on the horns, a Lynel, and a Frostgleeok in front of a blood moon. We can tell specifically that it's a Frostgleeok from the frozen horns on its head. Okay, but Frostgleeoks are my favorite to fight. So much so that I fought one with Tulin on a brand new file before even heading to my first dungeon. So getting Gleeok fights in this game really excite me, and I hope they're still really fun to fight. The trailer then cuts to clips from actual gameplay. We see the Goron Sage of Fire using an ability. His Secret Stone belt lights up. He's also surrounded by a bunch of Black Bokoblin. He specifically uses his ability to power up the Rito Sage of Wind, who we see get shielded just like Daruk or Yunobo would, or Link when he would use their powers. The scene cuts away before we get to see how this would continue though. Perhaps the team-up involves a barrage of fire arrows raining down on nearby foes. Based on the way this scene depicts the two characters working together in the middle of combat though, it's very clearly one of the team-ups we saw teased in the first trailer. This also isn't the only one we see, but more on those as we come to them. Also, this battle seems to be in some sort of canyon. We can see a ledge up above into a cave, decorated like an enemy keep. The next clip focuses on the Rito Sage of Wind wielding a flame emitter against blue bokoblins. While it's meant to look related to the previous clip, it isn't. Instead of the canyon, this clip takes place in a snowy area, so it's most likely the Hebra or Tabantha regions. The Rito is carrying the flame emitter, using it against the enemies, but isn't using his Great Eagle bow. So these Zonai devices don't seem to get fused to weapons themselves. How do they work then? We'll come back to that later. The voiceover from these past clips is,
"Be that as it may, we face it together."
And it might be the Rito speaking? It's hard to say if this is a direct response to Sonia's quote before about Ganondorf, or if it just happens to fit. For all we know, it could be when he's made a sage, and Rauru tells him dark times are ahead for Hyrule, or something. The next clip is a quick shot of Minoru walking, flanked by a pair of Hylian guards. This appears to be in the depths, not only judging by the general dark atmosphere, but in particular these plants on the right, which only grow in the depths. Though, despite what I said about lighting, the very first few frames of this clip actually suggests there's some sort of fire nearby. It's sort of used as a transition from the previous clip, but I can't tell if it's an effect done in post to make the scene's transition better. There are even stray sparks fluttering around for a moment. But anyway, where in the depths could this be? The walls on the side look more like a stone cave, but we can definitely see some pillars and archways behind the trio. Everything has also really been overgrown. Just before the scene cuts away, we can see some sort of wooden stick on the left. I can't really make out what it is, but it does make me wonder if that was a previously lit fire, explaining the flames that we saw. Next up, we see a shot of Zelda walking through the depths, with Rauru and Minoru walking ahead of her. This is another clip that, like in the first trailer, suggests that we'll have some sort of playable cutscenes, periods outside of battle where players control Zelda navigating through a cutscene, or at least walking to a specific destination. The full extent of these have yet to be seen though. They may just be for added immersion, or they may represent what the game will be like outside of combat sections. Given that it's the depths, it's hard to find more in this scene to talk about, as it's clearly very dark. There's some sort of large stone slab up on the left that looks like it could be moved with Ultra Hand. I wonder if it was previously blocking the way and Rauru moved it. There's also this Zonai construction fence on the right. And up here is some sort of light. It kind of looks like a flower, but it doesn't seem to move, so it's static. But what is it, and why isn't it attached to anything? Next, we see Zelda and Rauru fighting in the depths, activating their team-up. Zelda wields a small Zonaite sword, powered with the same yellow energy that Raru's blade uses, which looks to be the same blade that we see her use against the Lionel in the first trailer. There's an enemy camp behind them that looks pretty built up, and they're specifically battling gloomed black bokoblins. This makes me believe that the gloom mechanic from Tears of the Kingdom might be back, where you can permanently lose hearts until they're restored by returning to the surface or consuming a sunny dish. Anyway, Rauru and Zelda have their hands pressed together, just like was teased in the first trailer. But this time, we actually get to see what it does. The pair use their powers to unleash sweeping beams of light at their foes, in two different directions at once. They move at different speeds though, and we can see they begin a bit to the left. Rauru slowly moves left and stops, whereas Zelda takes longer to reach the rightmost limit. This makes me wonder if this attack is controlled with two control sticks. Left stick to aim with Rauru, and right stick to aim with Zelda. Then, we see Minoru fighting off a bunch of Soldier Construct 2s. This takes place on a sky island, though it's hard to say which one. Technically, the Great Sky Island shouldn't be a thing yet, so I'm curious to see where this ends up being. She uses a special attack to place 4 construct heads, each with a propeller fused to it. The Zonai devices then use wind to juggle all of the soldier constructs into the air, before fading away. Between this and the last trailer, I think I'm starting to get a good idea of Minoru's playstyle. She wields this small wand made of Zonaite, but it's not a Zonaite sword. She waves it around to command different constructs and Zonai devices. We've seen her use it in the last trailer to ride away from a Frox on a small wheel, as well as a cinematic special attack to summon her construct, which then gets a ton of rockets fused to it to attack the frogs. My guess is that Minoru will wield a series of Zonai devices that won't be usable by everyone else. So while we saw the Rito using the flame emitter before, he won't be able to use the small wheel or construct heads, for example. Also, why are we fighting soldier constructs? Shouldn't they be siding with the Zonai at this point? Has something taken them over? Or is this just a training exercise for Minoru? Moving on, we then see Rauru and Sonia together on the battlefield. It looks to be down on the surface of Hyrule. There's all sorts of construction materials and wood in the background, as well as a tent. Maybe this is the start of a village being made. There's also a stone archway in the back. We can see the Gerudo Highlands in the background behind them as well. Raru's hand is out, like he was just using an ability, and Sonia holds a large spear. Based on the design, I think this is actually Raru's spear, though the design of the yellow energy looks different, but that might just be due to the different angle. So is Sonia wielding the spear? Or was she holding it for Rauru as part of this animation for him to do a different attack? Regardless of whose spear it is, the two hold it together, and look as if they're about to strike using it together. But the scene cuts away before we get to see it in action. Oh, we can also see Zelda back here. So the big question that this sparks is Sonia playable? I mentioned earlier that I'm pretty confident she's here in a playable capacity, as she's not only here on the battlefield, but she's taking part in this pair-up attack with Rauru as well. This has me curious what her playstyle will be though, as she has the recall ability just like Zelda. But that doesn't mean they're going to be playing similarly. Though, it is worth mentioning, there is a non-zero chance that she isn't playable. There were a few story levels in Age of Calamity that had Purah and Rabi, who were not playable until DLC released like a year later, and they were active NPCs on the battlefield in the meantime. They needed to be escorted, rescued, and more. Yet their AI would still make them focus on and chase enemies like a playable character would. So, could Sonia be the same? Here on the battlefield in an NPC capacity, perhaps needing to be protected, but can work with Rauru and Zelda for team attacks? It's possible, but I'm personally leaning more towards the idea of her being a playable character. Moving on to another team-up animation, this time between Zelda and the Sage of Water, Zora. It's hard to say exactly where this takes place, but it's definitely on the surface of Hyrule. This area in particular is covered in mud, and there's lots of small rocky hills with big trees. Maybe this is somewhere in the Lanayru region, or the Lanayru wetlands? The Sage of Water spins around and floats up to Zelda. Zelda nods at her, then the Sage seems like she's about to continue some sort of attack. But unfortunately, we don't get to see it in action. So there's not a lot else to say about this one. So, we then see a bunch of enemies during a blood moon. There's blue and red bokoblins and a blue moblin as well. Behind them appears to be a series of trees set on fire. So it's hard to say exactly where in Hyrule this might be. The next clip shows Rauru attacking some bokoblins and a boss bokoblin. We can see he's helping out a Hylian soldier NPC as well. The attack looks like the end of a combo. A series of light strikes form multiple rows ahead of Rauru, looking as if they burst out of the ground at the same angle as his spear. We then see Zelda near a bunch of black bokoblins and a silver moblin. The silver moblin has thrown an explosive barrel, but we see Zelda use her powers to recall it back at her foes, exploding on contact and launching them everywhere. Notably, this looks near identical to using recall in Tears of the Kingdom, rather than a special attack or combo from Zelda. We've seen her use recall in combos, but this looks like just simply using the ability. We can even see for a few frames she runs, then faces the projectile, so it's definitely not part of a combo. Could it work like the Sheikah runes in Age of Calamity? Or perhaps Zelda specifically has a button where, as soon as it's pressed, it just targets an on-screen projectile to recall? On a different note, the area Zelda's in is pretty interesting. It doesn't look like the depths, and it seems to be a location near fire as we can see cinders. And with everything given a red tint, it's also likely during a blood moon, but I can't quite place exactly where this is. Maybe it's near the Great Hyrule Forest in the Lost Woods? There's some interestingly shaped trees nearby, and what looks to be gloom or malice engulfing some of the plants on the left. Moving on, we then get a look at a battle against the Gerudo Sage of Lightning, before she's given the title. She stands in the desert, surrounded by other Gerudo in some sort of outpost. We first get a good look at her Scimitar of the Seven and Daybreaker shield. Then, we see her in combat against Rauru. She slides forward with a burst of energy, the ground tearing up under her heels. As she stops moving, she swings her blade in a large sweeping arc ahead and above her. As she does this, Rauru leaps back, and we can faintly hear the sound effect for a successful perfect dodge, which normally allows for a Flurry Rush follow-up. But he lands on his feet and doesn't follow up with a Flurry Rush. The sound effect played, but is the mechanic still here? Maybe it plays out differently in this game? Anyway, the scene cuts to a different shot of the battle from a different angle, with Rauru creating a bunch of orbs of light, then slamming his spear down in a massive explosion of light energy. To me, this looks like the end of a late combo, with a strong flashy finisher. Notably, neither clip during the battle have the Gerudo NPCs seen in the first shot. Maybe the minor enemies won't appear, and this is a duel between this future sage and Rauru. The last clip with this Gerudo in this sequence appears to be from a different scene. We get a good look at her face, the first time we've seen the face of any of these ancient sages, which does well to give hope that we'll get a good focus on these characters and actually learn who they are. There's also a Gerudo soldier or guard behind her, so she's not alone here. She appears to be looking on at something ahead of her during a cutscene, but it's hard to tell much more. Her quote for this whole scene is,
"But you sought it from Hyrule of all places? This is madness!"
I'm not sure if these two sentences are normally connected, given the pause between them. The first sentence sounds more like it's spoken with disbelief and disapproval, while the latter has more rage and disdain. They could be from the same speech or cutscene, with more lines or exchanges in between both being said. But my theory is that both of these lines are said to Ganondorf at different points in the story, with the latter after he becomes the Demon King, after the Gerudo get hurt from his powers, and they then choose to side with Hyrule. The next clip is a cutscene with Rauru. In the background, we can see Hylian soldiers and Captain Construct 1s. They all seem to be working together. The soldiers look tired, with one even helping another move, one holding his shoulder, and another using his spear to help him stand. This cutscene is likely after a battle has taken place. Given the red skies of the Blood Moon and the scorched burning trees in the background, it may even be related to the clips we saw earlier filled with monsters. During the clip, a strong wind blows through, as Rauru turns to look at his people. But that's about it for this scene. So next up we have Rauru, Sonia, and Zelda walking together, seemingly before some sort of battle. There's a large tapestry to the side, and Zelda runs between two guards to catch up to Rauru and Sonia. One of these guards is wearing Zonai armor. Sonia appears to be talking to Rauru, who turns a bit to look at her, though he doesn't look very pleased. This is likely as tensions are escalating, and things are becoming more dangerous. It kind of reminds me of the memory in Tears of the Kingdom, when they worked together to defend the Great Plateau from the onslaught of Molduga. I'm not sure if this is going to be tied to that scene though, but it's what it makes me think of. The rest of the clips before the logo reveal are pretty quick-fire, short clips from cutscenes. We first have Zelda nodding slowly, with what looks to be the Temple of Time behind her. She looks distraught, like something's wrong. Perhaps in this moment she's worried about returning to her own time? We then see Sonia take Zelda's hands into her own. It's hard to say if this is from the same clip, but there are Sundelion down at the bottom, so they may be standing in the patch of wilting Sundelions from earlier in the trailer, and this might be a moment of Sonia teaching Zelda an important lesson. We then see Rauru facing away from the camera, looking in the distance at something ahead of him. It's hard to say exactly where this is, but given all the stone around them and the general lighting, my guess is the Forgotten Temple, though back in this time it probably has a different name. We know quite a few scenes in the ancient past took place here from the memories in Tears of the Kingdom. The close-up of Rauru's face that follows might be from the same clip, but I'm not certain. The surrounding architecture looks a bit different. but it could simply be due to the different camera perspective. There's also some sort of stone statue in the background, with Zonai writing carved into it. And given Raru's expression, perhaps this is sometime after losing Sonia. During these clips, he says,
"There is danger here. Enormously so."
I do think these clips are normally said together, but I don't think these lines came from this specific scene. Personally, I think these lines are said closer to when Raru, Zelda, and the sages confront Ganondorf for the final battle. After the logo reveal at the very end of the trailer, we see an original character construct. But backing up a little bit, the first shot here looks to be some sort of Zonai temple deep underground in the depths that has been lost to time. The second shot continues this idea, though it looks even more ruined than the first, and it kind of mirrors the opening shot to Tears of the Kingdom with the long stairs down a corridor. At the end of the hall, up top, is some sort of glowing insignia, not the usual ones that we see with the Zonai, but very similar. The symbols and shapes in the center look different than what we usually see. But most notably, the opening notes of Fi's theme from Skyward Sword plays here. And the construct that we see isn't Mineru's. It has smaller hands and a much smaller body size. Watching it get built while laying down kind of reminds me of Link waking up in the Shrine of Resurrection back in Breath of the Wild. We can make out a little bit of its head up here as well. It doesn't look to have any of the owl-like imagery from any of Mineru's constructs and devices, so I don't think it's tied to her. The shapes and pieces actually remind me more of the Ancient Heroes aspect, the reward for completing all shrines in Tears of the Kingdom. The arms in particular seem similar, though that could just be the Zonai armor arms that Raru also has. Anyway, the Ancient Heroes aspect is meant to represent the Ancient Hero, presumably the one who helped stop the original Calamity in Breath of the Wild, who wears Zonai armor, but notably doesn't seem to be a Zonai himself. So, what does all this mean? Well, it is 100% a character that we did not see in Tears of the Kingdom, especially in this form. It could be a new body for Fi, since the Master Sword is destroyed. Or it could be a new body for Link, or even the Ancient Hero, transported through time and given a construct body so they can assist in the fight. Or it's an entirely new original character, which Age of Calamity had Terrico, the little egg-shaped guardian. So it's not impossible that this is the first tease of a similar entity. Given that the game is being heavily emphasized to be the canonical events of the lead up to Tears of the Kingdom, I'm not expecting to see any special time travel shenanigans in the main story. Also, given that the name of this trailer is A Call to Arms, I also believe this character will end up being playable. If not through the main story, then either through bonus side content or even DLC, like Terrico in Age of Calamity. That's all for the scene-by-scene breakdown, but there's still some more that I want to go over. Let's jump back to Zonai devices. Maybe they function like the Sheikah runes from Age of Calamity that anyone can use, because it wouldn't really make sense for every character to use Raru's Zonai abilities or Sonia's recall ability, for example. Though we do see Zelda freely use it in one clip, almost as if it's not tied to an attack combo. So that one in particular, it's hard to say for sure. But on the Zonai devices, maybe you can choose from some Zonai devices, like the runes, and every character has a unique way of using them. We see the Rito Sage of Wind carrying a flame emitter while flying, after all. Separately, we know Minoru makes use of Zonai devices in her attacks, so ones that the Rito Sage and the other characters can use are likely different than hers. A good comparison would be how Zelda fought with the Sheikah Slate in Age of Calamity, using similar runes to the same ones that everyone can use, but these ones were built into her combos. Next, I want to talk about the team mechanic, because I'm still trying to piece together exactly what it is. I've heard some suggest it might be similar to the pair-up mechanic from Fire Emblem Warriors, where you essentially carried another playable character with you, and they could follow up on attack combos or assist in a flashier special move. To that I say, maybe, but the pairs here feel more purposeful and bigger than any of the ones in Fire Emblem Warriors. Plus, we know from the original trailer that we can see Zelda and Rauru standing next to each other on the battlefield, each glowing, likely because they're about to use their ability. Some of these even seem like they might be a little too specific, so maybe not every character has one of these with each other, instead limiting it to specific pairings. That being said, Zelda probably has one with every sage, but would it make sense for, say, Sonya and the Goron Sage of Fire? I don't know. Overall, this could be a mechanic that then makes you think about your team composition, with different characters working better together thanks to team-up capabilities, rather than everyone can work together for a super special attack. It then instead limits to pairs and teams that make sense, or powers that complement each other in some ways. So, theoretically, the way this would play out, two characters that have a team-up ability need to be in battle together, and somehow, the criteria is met for them to use the ability. Maybe it's as simple as both of them having their special attack gauges filled, or, even simpler, maybe just standing next to each other. Regardless, characters then within range play a special animation of their hands connecting overlaid on the screen, as we saw in the first trailer with Zelda and Rauru. Then it goes back to gameplay, showing a unique animation of the characters together, before unleashing the team-up ability. In the case of Zelda and Rauru, they then unleash these sweeping beams. It's worth noting though, not every ability requires the wielders to hold hands. We don't see the Goron or Rito connect at all for the special that we begin to see. Of course, this is largely all just speculation for now, until the mechanic is better shown off later this month. Lastly, I want to talk about the fact that the UK version of this trailer titles it A Call to Arms. Age of Calamity's trailers all had names as well. Champions Unite, which showed off each of the 4 champions, how they played, and a glimpse of their role in the story, from before they were known as champions. Untold Chronicles from 100 Years Past, which were a set of 3 trailers that showed off some of the supporting cast members, encounters between different characters to expect in the story, including a tease of the antagonist Astor, and gameplay from various characters. And Unleashing the Divine Beast, which not only included a bunch of clips from Untold Chronicles, but also focused on the reveal of levels where players controlled the Divine Beasts. More than likely, we're looking at a similar marketing campaign to Age of Calamity, albeit a longer one. So if this trailer was called A Call to Arms, showing off some gameplay and story focused on Zelda, Rauru, and the Sages, what could future ones be focused on? If the Secret Stones have a special mechanic, powering up their wielder or something, we'll very likely see a trailer highlighting them both in the story and teasing the gameplay mechanic, perhaps called Sages Unite or something. While the dungeons and Tears of the Kingdom are different than the Divine Beasts of Breath of the Wild, I could see a story reason to visit all the dungeons here in Age of Imprisonment, in which case we'll probably see a trailer teasing their presence. And if Ganondorf is ever playable in the story, unless he's a secret hidden character, I could see a dedicated trailer showing off his gameplay. Either here, or if he isn't, I do believe we'll see a trailer spotlighting Ganondorf and any other notable enemies in Gerudo siding with him, such as the Twin Rova. And with that about does it for my first analysis of Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. But thankfully, we don't have to wait too long to get more. As of making this video, there's a Nintendo Direct rumored for mid-September, and we have official confirmation that the game will be playable at Tokyo Game Show at the end of the month. So either way, we definitely don't have long to wait before we learn a lot more about the game. Gameplay mechanics, more story hints, and of course, a release date. But what do you all think? Did I miss anything you think is important? Let me know down in the comments, and if you enjoyed the video, please make sure to leave a like, and of course subscribe and consider becoming a channel member for plenty more gaming goodness from me, including plenty more on Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. Until next time though, farewell everyone. Special thanks to my channel members at the Co-Star Luma tier: Kiss My Flapjack, Game Explain, Thale Caesar, Azure Pip, Swiftjar, and Simpsons703.